Alright, here we are for the 100 subscriber special Q&A recommended by viewers. And this will be the answering phase. It will be posted on YouTube later today on August 23rd for Greenwich Mean Time. So if you're living in Asia, you may be watching this on your morning of August 24th instead. So over the past week or so, I've had questions coming into the Discord server, and this will be the moment where I answer all of the questions that you have been intrigued on having the answers to. So we're going to start with the first question from Jaiban, where I'm going to be ignoring this first one because we did get questions later on. Where would I scale myself against Classroom of the Elite in intellect, outsmarting, and physical? We'll start in the order that you said. First of all, intellect, which for my scaling I have it as the IQ, the EI, the SQ, and the intelligence, with knowledge, academics, and memory being a branch of this. So I'll say starting with IQ, I scored 115 on a test, which based on Google stats would be around the level of Terehiku I think it is, Yukimura from Horikita's class. I could see that actually, perhaps with Yukimura taking verbal comprehension and working memory due to his ability in academics being equal to Sakayanagi. Could also take processing speed as well if he has quick calculative abilities, but I'm fairly confident I can take the perceptual reasoning categories, the visual spatial index and the fluid reasoning index, especially visual spatial, which I believe to be my best category personally. And for fluid reasoning, I could see myself taking inductive reasoning, possibly also abstract reasoning, learning ability, and Yukimura would take problem solving. For emotional intelligence, be a bit more difficult in my personal opinion, because while not the most engaging individual, I believe I'm well managed and regulated, and a decent perceiver of emotions. Check out my document. Don't know where I would scale myself specifically, but perhaps maybe somewhere around Kushida's level, if not below. With her taking perception, I could possibly take understanding and management. She would take engagement and facilitation as a certainty. I believe I could take emotional realization and self-awareness, since Kushida does appear to lack a general identity due to her attention-seeking nature. She wants to build something from attention from others instead of building it herself through her skills, such as mathematics. And coming under emotional management, which she's been shown to lose composure many times before, self-management and self-regulation, I believe could also go to myself. Henceforth, with my own opinion, me being around Kushida's level in emotional intelligence and could go either way. For social intelligence, I would scale a lot lower, while being, I'd say, reasonably decent in the cognitive aspect. The practical aspect, especially with social expression and social skills, I do lack in, but I believe I show decent enough capability in social management and engineering to be able to reasonably make up for this. I don't have a great perception on SQ scaling, but I could see myself being around Hiyori level, being not as good cognitively, but being better practically, with it kind of balancing out at that point. For general intelligence, I use Gardner scaling. Obviously, it does have its own flaws. No theory is perfect. This is just the one that I personally utilize. Linguistics, I could probably put myself maybe just around, perhaps around Ichinosei's level, because she has shown to be stronger in the mathematical department than the linguistics department. But I did get an 8 in my English literature score. God. Ugh. Anyway, so due to that, that'd be equal to about an A to an A+, which I think would be around Ichinosei's level. So that would be it for intellect. I'd say for IQ, I'm around Yukimura's level. For emotional intelligence, I'm around Kushida's level. Social intelligence around Hiyori's level, and linguistic intelligence around Ichinosei's level. So moving on from that, mathematical, I'm not the best in. I believe I would just be a mid-tier in general, just a background character. Existential, I could be perhaps a mid to high tier. I do take engagement points in ethical and philosophical debates and conversations. I'm the most engaged person in the ethics and philosophy class that I take at school. So I could see myself being around a mid to high tier in that category. Naturalistic could be one of my strongest points, personally, due to the fact that I can name every country on the planet, identify every single flag of all these countries, and name every single US state and English county. Now, while this doesn't contribute to general naturalistic intelligence in terms of the more physical aspect, I personally believe that it can play a part and contribute to one's own intelligence of the environment, such as topography, animal wildlife for each of these nations that I know. For musical, I don't play any instruments. I would be a fodder. For visual spatial, I believe I could be a middle to high tier with my high visual spatial index. Again, check the document for me personally if you want to find out. Body kinesthetic, I believe I could be a high tier. I have reasonably practical knowledge. Obviously not saying I'm a master in any of these, but I can utilize at least one or a few moves from 12 different martial arts. Again, not saying I'm a goat in all of this, but I also have competed in many sports, such as football, basketball, MMA, typical sparring using taekwondo, karate, and boxing at least. I also compete in sprinting, where I have a top speed edging out that of the football player Kylian Mbappe with a top speed of 39 kilometers an hour. So I believe I could be reasonably high in the body kinesthetic category. Interpersonal would be reasonably similar to emotional intelligence. I could see myself around Kushta level, whereas for intrapersonal intelligence, it can link to my existential scaling to a reasonable degree. So I could see myself being a middle to high tier in that category. Now, with that out of the way, overall intelligence, I'd say overall I could be a middle to high tier character. Maybe somebody of around a Chiaki Matsushita's level. Somebody who isn't overly known as a top tier academic, but still very solid within their own right. Next, moving on to outsmarting, I believe I am pretty much a fodder in this category. The feats that I have are usually involved with games, which are made to be solved, making their adversity very low, which is a hindrance to feats. This counts for all outsmarting categories, which are either planning, strategy, tactics, manipulation, and deception. So I believe I would be a reasonably low tier character, but maybe pushing mid tier because I've shown competence in such a scenario. So maybe I could be around or a little bit below Kushita's level due to her utilage against Horikita during, I can't remember the volume off the top of my head, but when they had that bet with Manabu as an observer, which Kushita cheated, I believe I probably would have been expelled via that. But that's my personal opinion. For physical stats, I could see myself being a middle to high tier. I'd be rather fodder in strength, but I'd be a high tier in speed and agility. For balance and flexibility, I could also be reasonably high tier as well, with me having hypermobility in my joints and also being able to stand on my toes just like Michael Jackson, but I can also run and jump on them and stand on them for a lot longer than he's displayed. So for that, I could see myself being a middle to high tier character in the verse, perhaps somebody around the level of Shibata from Ichinose's class, who is said to be purely athletically, on par with Pseudo, but Pseudo taking the edge in overall physique and overall, as it was shown that Shibata was putting out near equal performances and was second only to Pseudo in their year. Next one coming from Heart Chain Explosion, my favourite biscuit. It would probably have to be, if they count, Jaffa cakes, but I don't think they're biscuits, they're literally called cakes. Call that an outtake, actually. Maybe custard creams or rich tea biscuits. I know, so British. They just taste better. I'm never really the biggest fan of chocolate biscuits, so that's why I have them a bit lower. Digestives are alright though, but just not as good as the two previously mentioned. From Waffles and Cocoa Cups, we've got, where do you see yourself in 2 years in SCD? Now, I love this question. Since I've been in SCD for almost 8 months now at this point, I think I've come a long way, going from 0 to, at the time of recording, 103 subscribers. So if you add that up into a year with 4 extra months, you could see that being around 150 if growth remains the same. And if you double that around 300, then if current growth retains for the next year and 4 months, I could be around 300 subscribers, which I don't think will happen. Growth will eventually slow down as I kind of peak in terms of my normal CapCut editing. I could also see myself scaling more verses, because currently in terms of in-depth verses I can scale, it's very minimal compared to other creators. I can scale Classroom with the Elite, Code Geass, Death Note, Liar Game to some extent, a little bit of One Outs, and The Mentalist, which is shown with the most recent video, Red John versus CBI Patrick Jane. Go check it out. So I could see myself scaling more verses. Animes on my list are currently No Game, No Life, Bungo Stray Dogs. I'm going to be going over all the Code Geass material to create a Compla Lelouch scaling. He's going to be even higher rated from the Lelouch man himself. Any other recommendations for shows that I should watch, I will always take them in and watch. But in 2 years' time, I can see myself scaling more verses, having a wider viewership. I might even start to go forward with this podcast idea, which can lead to more it can work like true debates in a verbal sense and a more interactive style, which can be easier to engage in, especially if you don't like reading. That's why I think, personally for me, it's a good idea, but I don't yet have the influence to be able to enact such a plan. Anyway, we move on to the 20th of August, we have a question from Harsha. Funniest question so far, in my opinion, your top 3 waifus and add the reason why you like them, with the Chad emoji. Now, for top 3, if we're going to assume that this is out of all waifus and not just Classroom of the Elite, for example, then third place would have to be... Oh, I know my first 2, but the third would be so difficult. I probably should have pre-planned, but I decided not to, so my answers would be more natural. I would say my third favourite could be maybe Mashiro Shina. I actually forgot the anime name. I'm going brain blank at the moment. But it's just very intriguing. Somebody raised completely away from the social environment for the sake of perfection in a form. And the way her character development really shows itself from the start to the end of the show is also very compelling. It's almost like a more emotional, sped-up version of Aina Koji's development, where she learns how to feel proper emotions and engage with other characters in the show. I personally think she's just a very good character, and her artwork is peak. Even I could look attractive with that. Second one would be from an anime that I actually do know the name of, and that would be Yulie Sigtuna from Absolute Duo. Don't question me on that one. Most of my preferences do come from personality. Also, the moments away from the combat in the anime, while a bit on the slightly extreme end for my taste. I do ignore them for the sake of the show in general. So I don't like any girls from that just because of that kind of dynamic that the show can set up. Personally, she also shows similar character development to Mashiro, where she becomes more in tune with people. Also, her backstory, as shown as kind of like an end credit scene with the Avengers scene. Oh my god, the abridged having the Avengers theme play at the end of that, amazing. Tips off to the creator who did that and all of the people behind him. They big props. Love the abridged series. She's very like quiet but like composed kind of individual, and obviously has that classic really cute and attractive silver hair trope, which has been seen countless of times. But if it works, it works. But she's also an amazing fighter. You got to give that to her, and she has swords. Enough said. Number one, the most obvious answer is Hiyori Shina from Classroom of the Elite. I think it was obvious, especially in my earlier videos. If anybody calls cap on that, then they have not been watching the series that intently, or really been a participant. But you should, because this channel's amazing, the people are amazing, we're pure and wholesome, no shenanigans, except for some members' personal life, but they do not infringe upon the chat itself. I can guarantee that. But Hiyori is pretty much like the only sane female character that isn't like a psychopath, which is always a big bonus for the show. She's also big into the mystery novels, which is practically the exact same hobby that I have myself, so it always creates that rapport between me and the character. Also has the cute, small, silver hair girl trope. I think there's a kind of resemblance going on here. Oh god. But she really stands out because of that. She's not like a psychopath or some kind of just crazy weirdo. Like, one's going to try and seduce to manipulate you. Actually, no, that's two, Ichiko and Arasu. Yeah, I don't know why they're top waifus. I don't get it. No, it's confusing. But other background characters are also good because they're also not psychopaths. Ichinosu's Yandere side was kind of a bit of a turn down, in my opinion. Haruki's also good, but it looks like she is pretty much destined for Goji at this point. Hopefully that means Classroom of the Elite's harem stops. Yeah, that's my reasoning. I just like the nice ones with decent character development and parallels with other characters, and maybe even just a silver hair trope plays a part as well. Who knows? I'll leave that to you to decide, I guess. Although that'd be a big mistake on my part. Next, from Tastuya Mizuki, if you were to get transmigrated into Classroom of the Elite without any knowledge of the plot, and you'd been assigned to expel Ainakoji as a compulsion, how cooked am I? I'm very cooked, unless I can abuse influence kind of like what Kushida did, and maybe use it more effectively. But since I'm a Kushida fodder in outsmarting, I see extremely minimal % chance of that happening. Yeah, I'm extremely cooked. Nothing I'm going to do. I'm just going to be known as just a fodder Koji victim, number 1000. As for a more specific route that I would take, it would be the influence route. I'd probably like kind of monopolize off the influence of people like Kushida, Karuizawa, and Hirata, and kind of use that to build my way up. And as I would eventually, I realize as Ainakoji is not big on the whole engagement side, I could use that primarily probably during the unanimous voting exam. That is the easiest way to expel Ainakoji, because he's just not that popular. But the thing is obviously the link with Kei would be cut as she becomes an Ainakoji pawn. Just tool for her to use, completely side-oriented. But also she can't make a great case about Ainakoji herself, but it's still one less vote against Koji and one vote towards whoever was Yamauchi in the end. Also, Horikita's speech to expel Yamauchi would also be a big kind of spanner in the works for expelling Ainakoji during this exam. And also the fact that Arasu had practically cemented Ainakoji's place with Class A's votes, which would then also lead to the ability to possibly have Ainakoji further pushed down because of Class A giving them votes, using the influences before to be able to push the point. Using Hirata's depression could also be a route, but once Ainakoji sorts him out, then that's cut as well. Yeah, 100% cooked. I have no idea. I would just be a Koji fodder. Anyway, another one from Waffles and Cocoa Pops. Koji versus Vincent Lalo. I haven't seen Usogui, so I can't really scale this, but off intuition and videos that I've watched, I could probably give planning, manipulation, deception to Lalo at least, and SQ. But stuff like IQ, intelligence, knowledge, academics, memory, maybe even like reasoning, sensory problem solving, could be psychology as well, could go to Ainakoji, which is actually quite a lot. But I know, again, Lalo is Usogui, which is obviously always a big buff, and he's also, as far as I know, he has been able to stand up to Baku and Hao before, and with those two practically being like top tiers in SED, probably does mean Lalo does victimize Ainakoji, maybe taking planning, strategy, and tactics, perhaps. Cognitive categories could be more up for debate as well. But honestly, I don't really know, but with Usogui narrative and the statements that I've heard, Lalo could probably beat Koji, but it is most likely close, because of how well I know Ainakoji's feats. They are impressive. I put him in between like Light and Lelouch, or more actually like L and Lelouch, kind of got Ainakoji in the middle there. So I could scale it better if I read Usogui, but I'm not a big manga reader. It took me ages, really, to get into manga itself. I eventually sped up once I read like Tomodachi Game a bit. although that was controversial because of the K video. But I stand by that reasonably. No longer mid to high diffs Arasu after the Year 2 Volume 12 buffs. I think it's definitely a lot higher. I could probably reevaluate it and send it out sometime. But yeah, close battle, but Lalo probably takes. I'll really disagree to be more concrete on that. But that's just my intuition take anyway. The penultimate question, yeah, didn't get a lot of questions here, from YG33 is rate your adaptability from 1 to 10. Now, I would put this at roughly a 7 or an 8. I know, very high, could be self-glazing a lot, but read my doc. It hasn't finished yet, so I haven't gotten like all of the adaptability feats yet. So I'll state a few here, just to add a bit of time. We're currently at, oh my god, I'm at half an hour. I'll just speed up the video. Because I was playing basketball once, and just two teenage girls. I was about 14 at the time, they were about 17 or 18. They were playing for their college team on the national level. I know, amazing. Now, this could all be just due to a bit of smarts and maybe better physical specs since I'm a male, and males are biologically superior to females. If you call me sexist, you're just wrong. It's a fact. That's why we do the heavy labour jobs and you do the more social jobs. That's just how it works. So I'm sorry. But after being kind of demolished for a bit with their superior skill, I had my anime main character moment kind of analyse their kind of playstyle, how they moved. Because if you know how somebody moves, if you get a pattern, then eventually you can counter it by moving in the way of that pattern. So I did that and utilised the perhaps superior physical specs to kind of outmaneuver them. Eventually I got to a good enough point where I could then mimic the moves that they did through the patterns that I'd analysed. And with that, I practically 2v1 them and only conceded one shot in the end, like after my analysis had been complete. And that was just because I struggled with the defending aspect, because obviously each shot is different. So I could never anticipate where the shot would go. It'd be impossible unless I used intuition, which I did for the most part. I was also around the same height, but had longer arms, so I did have the reach advantage as well. So that also played a huge role. But yeah, I also learned how to use a government computer system in about 10 minutes for work experience. It wasn't like, uber super complex Flair chess machine level. No, but it was decent good. Like, it was like a town council level. It had log of over about maybe a bit more than that. I can't go into too much detail. It had like details of like thousands of people, miles upon miles squared of land, and kind of stuff like that. Travel times between each different location, the direct, again, I can't go into too much depth, but we'll just say it was decent. It had stuff like locations, people's details, whereabouts, travel times. It was just a travel thing. That's all that really needs to be known. Because it also allowed me to track what every single pickup bus was. So I mean, it was a very complex system, but not super complex. I got it in about 10 minutes and was making bookings with practically no difficulty by the end of it. But I might just be self-glazing at this point. So anyway, last question from Ash. Do you love Manabu as much as I do? No, I don't. I love him more. He is the GOAT. Manabu's super underrated in Clash with the Elite. Second in the verse. Takuya Yagami, Victimizer, high diff, cry about it. Period. I mean, that's what people say now, I think. So anyway, that is the Q&A finished. This lasted about just over half an hour. I thought it would have been a lot quicker. But it will be, because this video will be distorted and sped up, so my actual voice isn't shown, because I'm a scaredy cat like that. Womp womp, I will cry about it. It is an L+ ratio. But yeah, could have gotten more questions, but who cares? I was kind of hoping for video recommendations, questions being like, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you scale this character? Can you read this? But I'm not going to hate. Every single question on here was a W. Even the favourite biscuit one. Obviously, I can't wait for maybe a 150 sub special. Don't know what I'll do for that. Once I'm at around 130, 140, I can get people out for that. But I'll probably do specials for 150, 200, 250, 500, 750, 1000. But I might not even get there. But that's what I'll do it as 100, 150, 200, 250, and then jump up to 500 and just make the gap bigger from there. But yeah, thank you everybody that participated for the questions, that being Jaiben, Heart Chain Explosion, Waffles and Cocoa Pops, Harsha, Tastia Mizuki, YG33, and Ash. Thank you all. And I hope everybody enjoyed this question and got answers that were satisfactory for them. Remember, I try my best to do any recommendations you have, unless they are not family friendly. You know who you are. I'm looking at you now. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. I hope you're all subscribed. If you haven't, sub now, or I will ICB in your house. For legal reasons, that is a joke. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye.